Back again. And now we're taking a look at a question from PrepTest. Oh gosh, what was it? 149, Section 3, Question 24. And I believe this is the question about the meteorologist. And if you're looking for test 149, it would be 83 in the old numbering. And this should be from about, oh gosh, December of, I don't know, December of 18, 17, maybe 17 actually. So it's December 17. Donald Trump has now been president for 11 months, the first time, and the world is already in chaos. And 2 years from now, everyone will be dead. So, what are we talking about, meteorologists? We got this question: which of the following, if true, provides the most support for the meteorologist's argument? So the most support, which of the following if true, whenever we see phrasing of which of the following if true, it's going to be one of three types of questions, basically. It could either be a strengthened question, make the argument better. It could be a weakened question, you make the argument worse. Or it could be a paradox question. That's one of those explain the apparent discrepancy ones. But which one of the following if true is always a dead giveaway. On strengthened questions, they're going to give you new facts, new evidence you did not have before, and new evidence that, quite frankly, you could not have predicted. That being said, can you sometimes actually kind of predict it? Yeah, you kind of can. I'm not going to lie to you. But I've been doing this for a long time. Sometimes, it's just, I feel like the LSAT and I are an old married couple, and we each know what the other's going to do, and, we're bored with each other, and we're just waiting to die. Anyway, you can't really predict a strengthen, though, because the fact they give you in the answer choice for the correct answer, you're not going to know what it says. It's brand new evidence. It's as if, at the end of a court case, the attorney goes, "Your Honor, we've just discovered," and they try and get something new in. That's what they're doing here. Or that's what the prosecution or the plaintiff's lawyer would be saying. "I got to get this in to make my case." Or the defense says, "No, I got to get this in to make their case worse." Now, so you can't predict it. We do prefer stronger language to weaker language, though. And when I say stronger language, if you have a choice on a strengthened question, weakened question, paradox question, between like some and most, go with most. Many and most, go with most. Many doesn't mean anything. Many, think about what the word many means. If I said, I have many dogs. How many dogs is many dogs? To some people, if you have 10 dogs, you got many dogs. To some people, if you have 3 dogs, you have many dogs. It's just a word that doesn't mean anything. Now, so always choose the more extreme. If you have a choice between two that work, don't just choose most over some because you think some is always wrong. Some is usually wrong. You should be very wary of language like some, at least, many, certain, those vague kind of ones. We do want stronger ones because strength and weakened questions are using this civil standard in order to make the case. When I say a civil standard is a preponderance of the evidence. In a civil case, and we have two types of cases, obviously we got criminal law, which is a beyond a reasonable doubt. And that basically means you got to be like 99% guilty for them to send you away. 99% guilty. I'll probably take wagers now. Are they going to convict Diddy? I don't know. They've shown he's done a lot of bad things so far. But has he sex trafficked anyone yet? They haven't even reached that portion of the case. So right now I'd say they got a losing case. He's a piece of shit as a human being. But have they reached that 99%? Are you 99% sure Diddy did this? Now, Diddy probably did do it. Did I actually say that? Diddy probably did do it? God. But, do you know for sure? Do you know for sure? Not really. But in a civil case is anything that's not criminal, and this could be wills, divorces, just estates, contracts, personal injury. Anything that is not a crime is civil, basically. And in civil court, we have a different standard. It's not 99% proof, it's 51% proof. And we call that a preponderance of the evidence. Preponderance just means most, 51% plus. Or anything over 50%, but for the sake of argument here, 51% plus. And if you can make 51% of your case in civil court, you should win. You make 51% of your case in criminal court, you should not win. And that's why we sometimes get different outcomes in cases, civil and criminal, dealing with the same set of facts. The most famous, of course, is OJ. Everyone knows OJ. I know most of you weren't even alive when OJ was, hunting for the real killers and everything like that. And he hunted many golf courses, and he never found the real killers there. Also good friends with Donald Trump, as is Diddy, as is Kanye. Donald Trump's got a weird set of friends there. Jeffrey Epstein. Okay. Yes, I will Trump bash. I don't care. I don't care. I don't like the man. I think he's bringing down this wonderful country in which we all live. And I hope you are all going to go to law school and become part of the resistance. Hopefully. Now, we have the civil standard, a preponderance of the evidence. We make most of our case, we win. And in OJ's case, they couldn't prove he was 99% guilty, so they got him out of the criminal case. And they did not prove he was 99% guilty. They did a very, very poor job, the prosecution in the criminal case. But in the civil case, where the family sued him for money, they were certainly able to make 51% of their case. Why were they able to do this? Because OJ was 100% guilty. He definitely did do it. But it wasn't proved in a criminal court. But it was proved to my satisfaction, maybe your satisfaction too. Anyway, so we have those different standards. That's what we prefer most to many. Most 51% plus. That's what most means. Most means preponderance. So we look for stronger language on strength and weaken if we have a choice between two good answers. We don't try to predict because a brand new fact could affect the argument in any way. You accept what the evidence says, what the conclusion says, and add this one more piece of evidence, and does it make the argument better? So, let's see what we got here. The number of tornadoes reported annually has more than doubled since the 1950s. Okay. The number of tornadoes reported has more than doubled. That doesn't mean the number of tornadoes has doubled, but the number reported has doubled. Always pay attention to those little nuances on the LSAT, because the LSAT might be just fucking with you, because they do like to fuck with you. But their actual number is probably not increased. All right. So the number reported by people who think they've seen them more than doubled. But this guy, the meteorologist, thinks the number is the same. So if there were, 1,000 tornadoes reported in the 1950s, now they're reporting 2,000 tornadoes. But he thinks, there were still like 2,000 tornadoes all along. Whatever. Our ability to find tornadoes has improved. They're finding more tornadoes. That's what accounts for this doubling. Not an increase in the number of tornadoes, and the ability to find tornadoes. So we're probably just finding a higher percentage of them than we used to. So we got this conclusion here. I am finding a larger percentage of tornadoes than I used to. I used to find half of them, and now I find all of them. Maybe something like that. It's just something as simple as that. Don't think too much about it. Just always couch it in your own terms you're comfortable with. This is not a complex argument, and thankfully it's a very short one too. So, let's go into the answer choices here. We go in with an open mind because we can't predict the new evidence. You cannot predict the new evidence. You cannot predict it. Got Thanos back again. Thanos is a constant source of coffee. The physical damage caused by the average tornadoes remained roughly constant since the 1950s. All right, the amount of damage has remained constant, so the tornadoes are damaging the same amount of property. Does that have anything to do with finding them? Because you don't find physical damage until the tornado is passed through. And if the tornado is passed through and someone reports, hey, my barn was damaged, well, that barn was damaged in the 1950s and it was damaged today. It just doesn't matter. The physical damage is not a part. Finding them is what we care about. Finding more of them is what we care about. The number of tornadoes hitting major population centers annually has more than doubled. Now, this one could be very tempting because you go, oh, the number of tornadoes hitting like cities has doubled. But does that mean we're finding more tornadoes? Or just maybe there's just more cities for these tornadoes to hit? Or maybe because of climate change, the tornadoes have moved to somewhere else where they're hitting now differently, but there's still the same number of tornadoes. That's actually is what's happening. Tornadoes used to hit in the Midwest, Kansas, Nebraska, think of the Wizard of Oz, and now tornadoes actually hit in Mississippi, Alabama. They've moved. Why do they move? One can only speculate. I'm going to leave behind a barren planet for y'all. Definitely, start digging that shelter today. That doesn't matter because it could be the number of cities increase, could be a lot of things. Doesn't matter. C, the number of large and medium-sized tornadoes reported annually has remained roughly constant. Now, this is pretty interesting because you got to think about what this answer choice implies. If the number of large and medium-sized tornadoes reported annually has remained constant, but the number of tornadoes that they're finding has doubled, well, if the large and medium ones are the same numbers, then what has doubled? The reports on the small tornadoes. And if reports on small tornadoes have doubled, why have they doubled? Because we're better able to find tornadoes. Because all these little bitty tornadoes, people weren't finding them in the 1950s, back during the Eisenhower administration. But they're finding them today. And so they're just finding more small tornadoes. And if you're finding more small things, it's because you're able to find them better. C supports it. Does it prove it? No. Remember, your standard on a strength and weakness is not to prove or disprove. It's just to make it slightly more likely or slightly less likely to follow from the evidence. And in this case, it's slightly more likely. I mean, C just works. They're finding more small tornadoes. And if they are, it's probably because we're better able to find them. Do we know that for sure? We do not. But 51% sure. Yeah, that's good enough. Just take D and E while we're at it. The annual number of deaths due to tornadoes has increased steadily. Well, that could be because there's more people living there. That could be because there's more tornadoes. It's irrelevant, the number of deaths. Sorry. E, the geographic range in which tornadoes are most prevalent has remained roughly constant since the 1950s. Well, E, which of the following if true, E is not true, but if it were true, where you find the tornadoes has nothing to do with finding more tornadoes. Where you find them and actually going out and finding them, not the same thing, not the same thing. It's got to be C. C is our answer. C says you're finding more little tornadoes. We all good? I think we're all good. I realize my hair is looking a little crazy. Deal with it. Bye.